Welcome back, everyone, and thank you so much for enjoying our little shuffle there. We hope you met some new friends and that we didn't interrupt any serious conversation. Andre talked about our ongoing role in disaster response and health, and Scott shared a little bit about our work in education. I'd be remiss if I didn't briefly mention our work in financial stability, and that is in part appropriate for our next guest speaker. And we'd like to invite you to learn more about the financial education and stability work that we're doing at United Way of Acadiana. Earlier this year, we launched Bank on Acadiana in partnership with now 8 local banks to help our community members who are underbanked or unbanked become banked. And we ask you to look at ways you can engage to help increase the financial stability and health of families in our region. More than ever, now is the time for community organizations, institutions, and businesses to come together to serve Louisiana residents. These partnerships are critical when we look at how we can be more resilient as a community and as a state. Resiliency is a key word for our guest speaker. It builds our paths to prosperity and is one key factor is education. As we all know, education is essential for growth and can be the determinant for success, both as a state and as our local economies. And we will take steps to continue focusing on building resiliency of our region in partnership with our state officials. Therefore, we are honored today to welcome our special guest speaker, Dr. Kim Hunter-Reid, Commissioner of the Louisiana Commission of Higher Education with the Board of Regents. Recently recognized nationally with the 2020 Exceptional Leader Award by the State Higher Education Executive Officers Association, Dr. Reid is leading the state's efforts to increase educational attainment by developing our talent base to result in a more prosperous Louisiana. We are so thrilled to have you with us today, Dr. Reid. Thank you for joining us, and the stage is yours.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. I'm delighted to be with you all today and honored to be your keynote speaker for the United Way of Acadiana annual meeting. It's good to be back in Acadiana virtually. I look forward to being with you in person. And I'm also very happy that our board chair, Blake David, hails from your area. He and I just had a meeting here with the governor as we're trying to focus on how to advocate for more support for higher education in our state. So just very excited about the opportunity to speak with you a bit today and to continue to support the kinds of investment in our people and education and training that we know will make a difference. I know you have some education champions in this virtual conference. Dr. Joe Savoy, I certainly have to give a shout out to him. Not only a phenomenal president, but he has been a great mentor to me. So just delighted, T-Joe, to know that you're there as well. And then certainly your Superintendent Trostclair. Always delighted to think about our education to employment pipeline and how do we really knit together the kind of work and partnerships that allows us to move forward with our K-12 partners and then of course with business and industry. So very excited about that. I do have a slide deck. I think you guys are going to share that, but as you're putting that forward, I'll keep moving. I know that Benjamin Franklin insightfully said an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. We know that to be true, especially in Louisiana, and you know that to be true as well. Last week, we were excited to join Acadiana virtually to applaud the generous transformational $20 million gift from LHC Group to UL Lafayette's College of Nursing and Allied Health Professionals, designed to really enhance the recruitment and the growth of our healthcare superheroes to make sure we have more of them and they're doing phenomenal work. This is how Louisiana prospers. We prosper when we invest in our people, when we invest in education, when we move our work forward. And you know so much about that because you're the only region in the state that has set an attainment goal, 55 by 2025. And so we're excited to partner with you in that work. Next slide. Our Board of Regents has set a big goal, and that is to make sure that by 2030, we more than double the number of credentials in our state. We know that if we're going to have a Louisiana where people are recession-proof, pandemic-proof economically, they need to have access to education and training. And so it is very important for us to have a North Star that allows us to really move this work forward. An education agenda is a recovery agenda. You can't have a recovery agenda without really thinking about education. And as I know, this has been a really tough 13 months. Even for a state as battle-tested as Louisiana, that knows disasters and knows how to pull ourselves up and live united as we do, this has been one challenge after another, as you all know, from the pandemic, racial unrest, ice and snowstorms, multiple hurricanes. So our state has been through a lot. But when we think about disasters, we look to lessons learned. And I think about our Katrina Rita lessons learned, and those were invest in our people, invest significantly in our people, and try to make sure that our citizens have an opportunity to build back better and to have an opportunity to really feel supported and to be supported. So organizations like the United Way are vital in these times because you help people to weather the storm and to see success on the other side, to see hope. So you bring resources and you bring hope, and that is a critical combination. Next slide. The Board of Regents' job one for us is talent development. And when we think about educational attainment, right, we don't think about this as a numeric exercise, but as a people exercise. How do we increase the talent pipeline in our state, the talent imperative? I know this is a busy slide, but I wanted to make sure to give you a sense of where we are as we're doing this work. We started in 2019 launching our strategic plan, Louisiana Prospers. Then we were at 44.2% educational attainment. Now we're at 47.3%. So we're trending positive. But you also see in terms of the national numbers, that the nation is continuing to see an increase as well. So we're lagging, not leading, when it comes to increasing educational opportunity. We have more work to do. And you see there that the Georgetown Center was estimating that even last year, over 50%, 56% of the jobs in Louisiana would require something beyond a high school diploma, some credential of value. So we know we have work to do. The next slide speaks to how we do the work in terms of our own pipeline of individuals. So the lighter numbers, you can go to the next slide, the lighter numbers that you see on the next slide are the individuals who have a high school diploma or less. And this is for an population age 25 to 64. In Louisiana, 42.1% of our population has a high school diploma or less. Think about it this way. Over 1 million people, 47% of our working age population pre-COVID had a high school diploma or less as their highest credential of value at a time where you need so much more. So our goal is to increase the number of individuals in the dark blue categories, individuals who have an associate degree, a 4-year degree, a credential of value, a graduate degree. Not just because we think these credentials are, necessity. We do know they're a necessity, but we also know that they're life-changing for individuals, that families are stronger, that communities are stronger when we have more people who have access to credentials of value. And we also know that if you have a credential, your family, your children are much more likely to have a credential as well. You're more likely to be a taxpayer. You're more likely to be healthy, to have insurance, all of those things. So that matters. The next slide speaks to where we have been in terms of pre-pandemic. We were moving along, trying to make sure that we were promoting more education and training than ever before, and we were seeing success. We saw an increase in the number of students who were enrolled in Louisiana. We saw an increase in minority students and Pell students who were enrolled. All of those things are critical for our success. But then along comes COVID, and what have we seen? We've seen 4-year institutions have had steady enrollment. Some have had an increase, but our community colleges, our front door to accessible education, open access education, like the nation, our community colleges in Louisiana have seen double-digit declines, and a decrease in our minority student populations. So we know that we have work to do to try to make sure that we're moving this agenda forward, that we're recognizing the impact of COVID on communities of color, on the likelihood of enrolling and completing your education. I'm not a pessimist, but I did note last week that the World Bank called this pandemic the worst reversal on the path towards the goal of global poverty reduction in the last 3 decades. So I think for us, that speaks to the urgency of now. Next slide. We know that it's not just about enrolling students, it's about completing students. Again, this is a pre-COVID snapshot, and you see that we were trending positive, 44,000 credentials in 2019, and we saw an increase in minority credentials as well. And so that is the work that we have to continue as we think about leveraging resources. We think about the best executive budget that we see from our governor in 13 years of our executive budgets coming in Louisiana. How do we leverage stimulus dollars? How do we knit dollars together? How do we continue to partner with organizations like the United Way to make sure that we're not just promoting access to education, but success through education? And that is very important. So we know we have to make sure that more students get into education, but also complete. And that's for people who are young or young at heart. Next slide. So as we do this work, we also want to make sure we're tracking how we're coming along. And you see here that we are continuing to have an increase. We've had a 17% increase in educational attainment in terms of completers. But you see, we still have a gap. So if we stay on the same trajectory we are now, we will not reach our goal of more than doubling the number of credentials. So that means we have to think about how to accelerate policies and practices that matter. How do we meet students where they are? How do we recognize that if it's not affordable, it's not achievable? How do we recognize that for individuals who are first in their family that do not have college knowledge, that they need more support in order to understand how to navigate the educational systems that are before them? So all of that is work that we have to do. And you know that work well. Next slide. Here in Acadiana, you are on it, if you will. We have a 3-pillar approach to our work: educate, innovate, collaborate. And our partnership with you really speaks to all of these pillars of the work. You've been a testing ground for us as we think about how to improve post-secondary student success, particularly for adult learners, and especially when we think about the non-academic barriers to success, what we call life happens. And so we know that students who leave us oftentimes, more often than not, they leave us because of life challenges, housing insecure, food insecure. Maybe the pandemic means they've lost 1 or 2 of the part-time jobs that were allowing them to afford to come to our colleges or universities. And so what we wanted to do pre-pandemic was to focus on this no wrong door approach, making sure that we knit together resources so that we have a model that meets individuals where they are, and that regardless of what resource you tap into, if you need additional resources, you don't have to meander through a complex bureaucracy to get there. That whether it's education, housing, food stamps, that individuals are supported. So we've been piloting in your area this warm handoff, this case management approach that connects students and individuals with the services they need to ensure that in Acadiana there truly is no wrong door. The pilot has been proven. We use the 211 services to schedule appointments, to follow up, to make sure individuals know what resources are available to them, and really to braid resources to try to make it easier for individuals who need help to get the help that they need. So we're excited about the pilot. We know that a proven pilot gives us an opportunity to talk about potential statewide reach and statewide opportunities for more. So one of the reasons I wanted to join you today, of course, was to thank you for taking this no wrong door approach and this journey with us and helping to bridge individuals to the students in need, and individuals and students in need to the services that will help them. I thank you for your leadership of this model and helping us to really test it and understand how to do a better job for our students, because we know that this is the work that we do. This is our why we get up every morning energized by this initiative, why we think about how to erase equity gaps, why we are pushing against barriers to student success. Because we know, I know from my own lived experience, that education matters, education pays. It can be a great equalizer, but we need to make sure more people have access than ever before. We also know that the work is not easy. Our master plan is a strategic planning document, but it also is a vision for how to bring our state together to ensure that Louisiana prospers. We know that we have to think about not just the education side, but the education to employment pipeline to make sure that more people have access to a credential that allows them to be self-sustaining and support their families. And so the Board of Regents has been talking with individuals around labor market analysis to try to make sure that we understand how to really connect the educational opportunities to the world of work, and to make sure that students understand the relevance of that work as they move through their educational process. MZ, a labor market analysis firm, came and spoke to us and shared about the 7 key sectors in the economy that are struggling to find people during this pandemic, because there are jobs available. We just need to make sure people have the education and skills to avail themselves of those jobs. So sectors like logistics and healthcare and technology and skilled trades, to name a few, are looking for individuals. And it's our opportunity to really make sure that we are connecting people to these opportunities to move them forward. Next slide. To add to this are many human skills that are in short supply. And so they shared with us this information. I thought it was interesting to look at, particularly the green side of the graphic, which is on the right. The largest rates of change in terms of human skills requested most in job postings, and the evolution of those skills, as you see, the largest rates of change are around innovation and critical thinking, curiosity, self-discipline. These durable skills, personal traits that are now in high demand, must be embedded in the work that we do as we think about how to move people forward. We also know that in this economy, there are many jobs that haven't even been created yet, new jobs that are coming on board, technology accelerating how we think and work and do all that we do. But the future of work, and there's lots of conversations about the future of work is human work. It's the work that only individuals can do, to use that their knowledge to move things forward intellectually, and technology and AI can certainly support that. But we want to make sure that we're having our students understand the future durable skills that will make them marketable and make them successful. All of that is very important to their work. The other thing I would say is community matters. And that's where I think United Way and this conversation comes in. Community matters because community is where you find people who are rallying around you, who understand your challenges, who are trying to meet you where you are and trying to bridge gaps. And as I was sharing before I joined this speech today, we miss community. We know that in a virtual environment, in a safe environment, we are finding community. But as we get on the other side of this pandemic, hopefully with vaccines, and yay science for bringing this along for us, we know that we'll have the opportunity to come back together, to share a great long table of crawfish and visit with friends, to have our students face-to-face and get them back into their internships and their apprenticeship programs that will matter. Because it is that community that supports us, that sustains us, that helps us to move forward when times are tough, like the times that we have seen so far. The next slide, I think, is a third-party validation of the work. You have a community that invests in education and understands the value. And I'm grateful that we are seeing philanthropy, state resources, and others come together to support our strategic plan. So far, we've received over $37 million in grants that will help us to focus on affordability, to help us to think about student success, to enable us to really move our work forward in terms of deep research, data-informed goals that allow us to really transform our systems. These are the things that matter. How do we innovate to make sure that more people have access to education than ever before? Because we know if we do it the same way, we'll get the same results. How do we think deeply about moving people from poverty to prosperity and all of the life challenges that have to be addressed that in the past we may have thought about as you solve those and then come to us. And now we recognize that those are academic barriers, and it's our responsibility in community to move that forward. So I'm really grateful that we have an opportunity to have more resources. I'm delighted that we are speaking today at a time when we have an executive budget that proposes more investment in our people. A Katrina Rita lesson learned that we have to move our agenda forward to make sure that more people have access to opportunity, and that means more access to education and training. The next slide is one of my favorite third-party validation slides. It's from Moody's Investor Services, an organization that typically does not opine around strategic plans for higher education. But they have said that our plan, when we step into the future in 2030, that it would be credit positive for the state, for our colleges and universities to reach this goal. And so I do think it's important for us to recognize the power of education to change families, to move people forward. Imagine the power of a credential in every household, over 1.4 million households in our state, and what that will mean for our people as we move this work forward. So education matters, and we believe in education because it pays dividends for our people. It leads to a stronger, a more prosperous community, a more prosperous state. And so that is how we live united, when we are more prosperous, when we erase gaps, when we know that everyone needs the same opportunities. And if we don't have that, those inequities mean that we're diminished as a state. And so how we partner, how we think about this work is very important. So today, I just want to say how much I appreciate the United Way and the community of leaders, the Acadiana community, for your forward thinking, for your commitment to education, for moving forward in a big way, because you recognize that incremental change will not get us there. Transformational change is what's going to make a difference in our state for our citizens. And so we continue to think about how to meet the moment when it comes to educating. A pandemic did not stop us. The battleship of higher education turned in 2 weeks, and we were virtual. And call centers were stood up, and we checked on students, and we called them to see, did they need a device? Did they need a headset? Did they need a hotspot? Because we knew we had to keep education moving forward. We supported the healthcare surge, and I'm very proud of the faculty and staff of our colleges and universities who have continued to move forward. But I also am so grateful for the partnership we have in Acadiana, because when we've said we'd like to have a proof of concept, we'd like to wrestle with some really hard issues, we'd like to bring a community together, a community that cares, you have been the community that has stood forward and raised your hand and said, we're all in. And as a result of that, more people across the state will have opportunities that they've never had before. And so I thank you for engaging with us. I thank you for listening to what I have to say today, and really appreciate the opportunity to join you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reed, for your energy, your inspiration, your confidence in both our region and in United Way of Acadiana, and of course, for sharing your very busy time schedule with us. Thank you. We all know from listening to Dr. Reed that we must come together to ensure Louisiana's resiliency, and we are so excited to have you all be a part of that. Before we close today, I want to thank our sponsors once again, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Louisiana, sponsor Acadian Companies and JD Bank, who made today possible, as well as all of those companies out there who purchased tables and who helped make this event happen. Thank you to all of you for being a part of the United Way of Acadiana family. We have so many things in the works in the future that we want you to be a part of. Please reach out if you want to play a bigger role in educating our community and creating a stronger and more resilient Acadiana. Thank you for coming today. Please stay and mingle. The floor is open until 1:30, and we're so happy to have you here. Thank you.